Thank you for spending your Thursday morning with us. Um, we're gonna get rolling because I think Gord's got a lot to share with us today. I'll give a super quick introduction and then I'm gonna hide myself and get out of your way. Everyone who's popping in or who is new to Grow Class, this is Gordon Leslie. He is the co-founder of Client Magnet, in my opinion, the best Facebook and Google ad agency in North America, as well as Conversify, which is an incredible way to help generate sales through LinkedIn without doing the annoying in-mail thing or having to spend an incredible amount of money on LinkedIn ads. He's also the instructor for Facebook for Pro Class. So he is lending his incredible brain to the program, and he teaches the Facebook module that's coming up soon for the folks who are currently in the program. Thank you so much for being here, Gord.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's always fun to meet your network. Grow Class has been awesome. If there's people in here that haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. Every attendee I've spoken to just praises it. So it's been fun. But yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So great to have you. So I'm going to turn my video off and give Gord control of this, and he's gonna walk you through some incredible ad stuff, and I'm just gonna be here learning.
Cool. So I want to start off by saying forgive me for wearing a hat, but as you can see, I haven't had a haircut for a year because of COVID. So doesn't look great. So I'll just keep the hat on.
Gord, can you hear me, Gord? I think I accidentally turned your audio off instead of mine. Hold on a sec. Turn audio on. Okay. Oh no, I've turned your audio off. I don't know how to turn it back on.
How about that?
Okay.
That?
Thank you. I was trying to turn mine off.
All good. So yeah, thanks so much everyone for taking the time. I want to just make this like super conversational, and so if you have any questions at all, feel free to jump in at any point. I'll mark some questions as well. If you ask something that I'm going to get to, I'll just mark it and then make sure I ask it in the section. But this is mainly going to be focused on more or less if this then that in ads. So kind of the most commonly asked questions I get for anyone that's either new to ads or even relatively advanced, and there's lots of different aspects we're going to be going over. So hopefully this touches for everyone, whether you're B2B or B2C. There's going to be a mix of both. But standard questions are going to be things like, if my ads are doing this, what do I do? And then we'll go into some details. So I'm going to give some examples, but first, let me pop up some slides. Can you guys see this? Yep. Okay. So a little background on myself. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm a co-founder of an agency called Client Magnet in Toronto, as well as a software company called Conversify. I think my business partner, Adam, is in watching this as well. So he's Adam Scanlon's the business partner for both of those, as well as Dave Hurley for Conversify. But for the ad side of things, a little background. So we manage roughly $12 million a year in ads. We've worked with companies like Clearbank, Wattpad, Felix Health. I've run ads for people who are considered the gurus of ads. I ran their ads, and people that spend who have generated $1 billion in sales from ads. So I've got lots of experience in a lot of different areas when it comes to Facebook ads, everything from local businesses to Fortune 500 companies. At the end of the day, the process that I take doesn't really change company to company. There's a specific strategy that we use, and then what changes is things like the creative and the audience. So it's a little background on myself. Let me go into the next. So today, like I mentioned, what we're going to discuss is if this, then that when it comes to Facebook ads. So I'm going to just jump straight into this. One of the biggest problems I see that people are like usually, hey, I'm running ads. I'm getting very low conversions. So that's I would say probably the biggest problem. Once you start running ads, there's a few problems before you start running ads, but one of the biggest is, hey, I'm running ads. I'm not really seeing the number of conversions that I need. What do I do? So there's a few solutions to this. The most important thing is you have to look at your funnel as a whole. So when I say funnel, we're talking, let's start with e-commerce as an example. The first step of your funnel, if you're running Facebook ads, is going to be your ad. So the first thing they're going to see is your creative. Then from there, once they click on the ad, let's say you're sending them to a product page, the next step of your funnel is the product page. And then from there, it's going to be adding to cart, and then the initiate checkout, and then finally the purchase. So that's kind of your funnel. And you can extend that as well. So if you want to do upsells, or even downsells. So if they didn't buy, you can downsell them with emails, or if they did buy, you can upsell them with related products. But let's keep it simple. And you have your ad is step one. Step two is the page you're sending to, and then step three is the checkout, let's say. The biggest issue is usually there is a bottleneck somewhere in there. So if we start on the ad, if your click-through rate is below 2%, that's probably your bottleneck, is your cost. It increases your cost per click. Two, less people are going to be clicking on it, so less people going through the funnel. And then ultimately that is like a cascading effect that increases the cost. So the first thing you want to do is try to get that click-through rate above 2%. So how are some ways you can do that? One, you have to be testing creative often. Like I would put a new piece of creative in every couple of days if you're not at the 2%. There's a big caveat to this though. If you are at below 2%, but your ads are still profitable, do not touch them. Keep them on and then experiment in a new campaign. Okay. So whatever's working, don't try to fix it. Move to making it better, but don't play around with that individual campaign. Move into a new campaign and do the test there. So that's most important. So an example would be, let's say you have 1,000 people that hit your opt-in page, and then 100 people opted in. That's a 10% conversion rate. And then 100 people divided by 1,000. That's how you get the 10%. That's more or less your funnel, and you need to find what's leaky there. Okay, so that's going to range company to company. Like landing page. If we move from e-commerce to like a lead magnet or B2B, a landing page, we've seen landing pages convert at 80%. We've seen landing pages convert at 10%. You want to be roughly in the 20% mark if you're doing a lead magnet. Anything higher than that's great. Lower needs a little bit of work. People overthink things a lot when it comes to creative. I'll give you a really good example of this. When for Conversify, we were running ads. So Conversify is a product that helps people generate conversations on LinkedIn. And so we run a campaign where we were giving away message templates was the lead magnet. And so you'd click the ad. The ad would say, here's the 9 best templates that we found that work to generate conversations on LinkedIn. And then you go to a landing page that kind of mimics the ad, has a little information. And then from there, you just put your email and phone number your email and your name, and then you click download and you get the download. We did an experiment where we had this professional looking creative with a person, multiple different types of people we had on there, and an ebook cover. And it generated like low cost leads. I think they were like $3 or something like that. And then we took a shot out of left field and tried a image that had nothing to do with anything about the ad. The image was literally a like illustration of a forest, like kind of fantasy. Think of fantasy forest. It had nothing to do with the ad. And then from there, they went to a landing page that had the same image and nothing else on it, not a single word. The only thing was put in your email, put in your name, and then you get the downloads. That actually had a way higher click-through rate and a lower cost per lead. The thing is, it stood out. It was different. And my hypothesis on that was, if they're going to click the ad, they've likely read the ad copy. So they're likely sold to a point that they're looking for the next step. So if they've already clicked the ad, I was banking that I don't need to sell them on anything else. Let's just get them what they want, which was the lead magnet. And it worked. Now, that's probably not going to work for a high ticket product or maybe even a purchase. But the whole point is you always, always, always need to be testing. Always. Okay, so problem number 2, what happens if my click-through rate is less than 2%? So this is some of these things I mentioned, but number one, rotate creative every 72 hours ish. You can give or take a day there until your click-through rate is 2% or higher. That's like number one thing that you need to do. The other thing is obviously test the creative amongst different audiences, because you might have an audience that's not that interested and they're going to have a low click-through rate, but you might have the same creative and copy and everything with a new audience that is a high click-through rate. So once again, testing. Number two, outside of creative, because I know creative can be a big bottleneck for a lot of people. Creative is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to pump out at scale. That's why you don't overthink it. The example of the forest is like us not overthinking creative. We have a designer, but in that scenario, I was like, let's use the designer for the professional looking thing, creative, and then let's literally find an image on Google and see how that performs with the forest. So don't overthink it. But let's say creative is your bottleneck. Try things like headlines, your ad copy, switch from an image to a video, back and forth, and so on. And then that caveat that I mentioned, if your ads are profitable and have a less than 2% click-through rate, there is zero need to change creative in that campaign. Leave that campaign alone. What you could do is duplicate that campaign within Facebook and do all the tests in the new duplicate and see if you have, higher click-through rate. Because a higher click-through rate doesn't always, it usually does, but it doesn't always mean a lower cost per sale or lower cost per lead or whatever you're optimizing for, because you might get a lot of junk, as an example, that comes in. So do the tests in things that aren't profitable yet. Don't touch things that are profitable. I'm just going to take a look and see if there's any questions. Okay, cool. Like I said, if you have questions, just put them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. So another problem that I frequently see is, so when you're running Facebook ads, you're going to get a few different statuses on your ad sets. So there's going to be active, there's going to be learning, there's going to be learning limited. Learning limited essentially means haven't had enough conversions within the conversion window that you chose. So on Facebook, you can use, on Facebook, you can use, well, this recently changed, but you could use a 7-day click-through. So by standard, when you set up an ad, it's going to have a conversion window of 7-day click, 1-day view. What that means is they're going to attribute purchases or leads or whatever you're optimizing for with to people who viewed or clicked the ad. So if they click the ad, within 7 days, they're going to be attributed back to Facebook. Within 1 day, if they just viewed the ad, they're going to be attributed back to Facebook. You were able to optimize for 28-day view and 28-day click. 1-day view, 1-day click, I believe you can still do, but the standard is going to be a 7-day click, 1-day view. Some of the changes with iOS 14 that came out have limited the 28-day stuff. So don't mess with it. Leave it as a 7-day click, 1-day view. Leave it as the standard. But essentially what needs to happen here is you need to have a certain number of conversions within the conversion window. The last time I checked, it was 50 conversions. So that means 50 purchases within a week of running that ad. If you do not hit the number, you'll hit a learning limited, which means more or less Facebook is indicating to you that they don't have a sufficient amount of conversions of whatever you're optimizing for. So what happens when the algorithm doesn't know who to confidently go after out of your audience for that specific conversion? There's just not enough data to reinforce the machine learning. So it kind of resets, and you have to, more or less, your goal is to get 50 conversions or more. There's a lot of caveats here. So this is what Facebook says, okay? I've seen a lot of learning limited ad sets do very well. And if I step back for a second, when you think of a campaign on Facebook, there's 3 components to the campaign. There's the campaign itself, then which is like what type of campaign you're running. So if it's a conversion or a traffic or an engagement campaign or a video view campaign. And then there's the ad set level, which is your audiences. And then there's the ad level, which is your creatives. So learning limited happens on the ad set level, which is your audience level. So that said, I've had a lot of learning limited audiences do well. So you might have retargeting audiences or a custom list that you've uploaded that is pretty much always going to be learning limited because it's just not a big enough audience, but it still converts. So maybe as an example, you have a campaign where you're running video views, and then you create an audience of people that watch 95% of that video. Um, for the first few days, you're probably going to, well, for the first few weeks, potentially on your budget, you're going to have learning limited when you retarget the video views because the audience just isn't big enough, meaning not enough people watch the video for you to put them into the retargeting audience. So sometimes it just needs time to build up that audience. Now, if you're targeting a cold audience and the audience is relatively small, you're probably going to run into learning limited, especially if there's lots of competition. I would recommend being around 1 million or more people per audience is what you want to get into if you're looking for lower CAC and essentially using the algorithm to get into active instead of learning limited. That said, once again, if it's working, don't fix it. Like, don't try to touch it. Okay, it's working, let it be. So some of the solutions here. So if you were close to the number of conversions you need in a week, relaunch the ad set. So duplicate it, relaunch it, and just see if it does better. So that's always a good thing to test. Duplicate the ad set, let it run, see if it increases the number of conversions. If you're short of the number of conversions, we need to go all the way back to problem number 1, which is your funnel. You need to go back and see where the bottleneck is in your funnel, and you need to focus on fixing that, because as soon as you fix that, everything else gets better. So that's like very, very important. If there's no results after a few pivots of you changing things in your funnel at that bottleneck point, test new audiences with any winning creative that has worked in the past with other audiences. So that's one thing that I would highly recommend. It's really good to recycle creative. So you might have creative that worked really, really well 5 months ago, and then it started to die out because it was just being showed to the same amount of people over and over again. Switch that out, switch it back in. You can always repurpose creative. So try any winning creative on new audiences because it could be an audience issue. The final thing I would do here, so to go back, if your problem is learning limited, the final thing I would try is to duplicate the campaign and optimize for different steps of the funnel. So if we go to think of e-commerce again, just because it's an easy example, you have the first thing you can do is view content. That's the conversion, which is somebody literally viewing the product page. The second thing you can do is add to cart. So you can optimize for people that are likely to add the product to their cart. Third thing is initiate checkout. People likely to go to that payment page and fill out their information. And then the fourth thing is purchase. So if you're having a hard time hitting the number of conversions that you would need, that 50 plus conversions on the purchase side of things, just start going backwards in the funnel. So let's start with a view content, get that above the 50 conversion mark, then move into the add to cart, and then move into the initiate checkout, and then move into the purchase. It's going to compile more data, give you a bigger reach and a bigger audience, and so on. So that's I would say leave that to the last solution when it comes to this problem. Try the other ones first, but it does work well. You're just warming up an audience. The plus side of that is you're able to like build out think of almost like an email list on Facebook. So when someone takes a certain action, you can retarget them. So if they've hit your product page, you can build an audience of people that have viewed that product, and then you can run the ad to them again, maybe with a discount or maybe with free shipping or something to get them into the next phase, which would be getting them to add to cart, and then so on, so on, so on. Problem number 4 is going to be, hey, my cost per acquisition is too high. So cost per acquisition can mean a few things. It could mean my cost per lead, my cost per sign up, my cost per webinar registration, my cost per purchase. Just really depends on the business. So what do you do when your CPA cost or cost per acquisition is too high? So a couple solutions are going to be widen the audience. So if your audience, like I mentioned, needs to be around that million plus mark, that said, it's not always the case. If you have a very niche product or niche business and you're going after a specific audience that's less than 1 million people, just lower your budget a bit. Try that, because you're probably spending too much and competing too much that it's your cost per reach and CPMs and all that are going to go up. So if you just lower your budget by 20%, it's a lower audience or smaller audience that could do the trick. The other thing is, this is getting more advanced. When you are in an ad set, by default, it's set to automatic bidding. So what that means is when you set up an ad on Facebook, you're in an auction. So there's other people that are targeting the same people that you're targeting, or there's overlap of both yours and their audience that you're targeting. So we're all competing for that person's or those people's attention. So you enter a bid. So if you have that at an automatic bid, if you bid higher, if it automatically bids higher than the other person, and there's a lot of other factors, but to keep it simple, if you automatically bid higher than the other person, then your ad's going to get shown first. Now, if you have it at automatic and it's a very competitive audience, it's going to cost more and more to get in front of those people, which is your cost per CPMs, and your reach is going to go up, which ultimately increases everything. It's going to increase your cost per click. It's going to increase your cost per lead or cost per add to cart or cost per purchase. So you can do this thing called manual bidding. So let's say, as an example, you have a $200 a day budget. You can set a bid cap at $50. So meaning I'm willing to pay up to $50 for X conversion. So let's say you're optimizing for a lead, up to $50 for a lead. It's not necessarily going to spend $50 for a lead. It's just telling Facebook that I'm willing to potentially outbid, if they're using automatic bids, the competition. So that's one way to do it. And then every few hours, increase that, or we'll monitor it. And if at any point you're kind of hitting a bottleneck where it's slowing the amount that it's spending or it's not serving, increase your manual bid by $10. Okay. So that will tell Facebook, again, I'm willing to pay more. So let's say you set your manual bid at $50 and someone's automatic bid or their manual bid is at $70. They're likely going to win. They're going to get in front of that audience. So then just increase it by $10 every couple hours if you're seeing it's not really spending or delivering your ad. Another big reason why CPA can go way up is when you're scaling. So what a lot of people end up doing, if you end up scaling like 30%, so if you have a $100 a day budget, it's working really well, and you jump it to $130, very often you're going to confuse Facebook, and the cost per acquisition is going to go up until it kind of relearns and optimizes again. So one really easy way to combat that when scaling is to duplicate the campaign. So if you have a campaign that's working really well and you're having trouble scaling it because every time you increase the spend, your cost per acquisition or cost per lead is going up, just duplicate the campaign and increase the budget. So if you're at $100 a day, the new campaign that you've just duplicated, everything's the exact same. You just duplicated it. You're going to jump that to, let's say, $300 a day. And as soon as that gets approved, pause your other campaign. So you're just not competing with yourself. And that really is dependent on how much you're spending and how big the audience is. Like if you're spending not that much and the audience is big, you're not really going to compete with yourself. But it's just good practice to pause the other campaign if you're duplicating it with a higher budget, especially if you're in a smaller audience. And then see if that brings the CPA down, because now you're relearning, you're reteaching the algorithm or the machine learning for that campaign itself and that ad set at a higher budget. Let me go into the next slide. Okay, so I think we're getting close to the end. Let me just pull up my notes. So the last one is, hey, I have lots of add to carts, but I have very few sales. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons. Sorry, my mouse is acting up. There's a lot of reasons that could happen. Okay, so let's talk about some of the solutions as to, hey, lots of added carts. This is a really common thing, by the way. If you're an e-commerce store, you have a ton of added carts and very few sales. This also goes for, let's say, you have a ton of people going to the opt-in page and very few leads, as an example. So there's a few solutions. One, if you're in e-commerce, there's a type of campaign that you can create that's dynamic product ads, DPA ads. You can retarget, or I think they're now called catalog ads. So you have to upload, there's a few apps within Shopify that you can do this, but you have to upload a product catalog to Facebook. And then what that does is allow you to retarget people who looked at a specific product. So if you have 20 products in your store, instead of creating 20 separate retargeting ads, you can create this one campaign that retargets people and shows them only the products that they looked at in particular. So I think I'm getting I was scrolling the wrong way. Okay, so let me pause for a sec and look at some questions. Okay, let me go back to the bottom. Yes, let me see. I don't know if I have them on this computer, Caitlin and Casey. You guys asked if I could show examples of these ads. Give me one sec. Let me see if I can pull them up here. Actually, worst case. I'm just going to see if I can find these ads quickly for you. You know what? They're going to be in my ad account. Give me one sec. If I can't get them on this webinar, we'll put them in. I'll send them to Sarah and she can share them with you. In the meantime, let me go to a few other questions here. So Natalia says, a newbie here, what do you mean by creative? Is that just the image or the copy of the whole thing? Yeah, great question. So I like to, so creative mainly means the visual, so the image or the video. I would say you can include copy in there as well, but like the main thing when anyone mentions creative is going to be the image and the video. Those are the main things because that's the first thing that's going to catch someone's eye. Adeline says, is there a click-through rate of 2% and above considering all industries? I would say yes. I'm sure it varies like from industry to industry, but from my experience, I've worked with local businesses and I've worked with company like Felix, as an example, is a telemedicine company, and Clearbank is a financial company, and Wattpad is a B2C consumer fictional stories company, like app. They all are roughly like, you want to be above that 2% regardless of the industry. Perfect, Sarah. I see some of you responding to some of these. Any best practices for headlines? I like to use potentially the pain that I'm trying to, or that the customer may be having in the headline. So, or the solution that they want to see. So for Conversify, they want to, one of the pains is I'm just not generating enough meetings for my business, sales meetings. So the headline would be generate 3 to 5 new meetings per day on LinkedIn, as an example. Or for the message templates that we were downloading, or that the ad was advertising, it was the top 9 message templates that convert on LinkedIn. So the pain would have been, I don't know, I'm sending all these messages, it's just not working. So I like to be very human when it comes to my ad copy. Like as if I'm having a conversation with you is how I would like to address ad copy. A lot of people make it look super kind of professional. It's not going to work. Actually, yes, Sarah just posted. Okay, perfect. Like if you guys actually go into the chat there, Sarah posted one of our landing pages for Conversify where it says try.conversify.ai/templates. That is the image that we used in the ad as well as on the landing page for that high conversion rate. Monique, so for learning limited optimize for each step, do you recommend swapping optimization to top of the funnel step or just one up from where you are? Good question. It's totally like if I'm at purchases and I'm having an issue getting the number of conversions there, drop down to add to cart. It doesn't matter if you go down to view content first. You're going to probably go through all of them. So start with the next closest thing, add to cart. And then if that doesn't work, or sorry, in this scenario, it might be initiate checkout and then go to add to cart and then go to view content. I believe, AJ, the webinar is recorded. Michael, if you duplicate the campaign to scale, will the campaign have to re-enter? So absolutely, Michael, the new campaign is re-entering the learning phase because it's a brand new campaign. But if you're doing it at a higher budget, it's going to, like, let's say you were getting a good cost per acquisition on the original campaign. Like I said, if something's working, don't really mess with it. Let it be. So in that scenario, let's say you've got a campaign at $100 a day. The cost per acquisition is really good. And that you're having trouble scaling it every time you add budget to it, it's the cost per acquisition maybe going up, which is kind of natural as you scale things anyway. But let's say it's getting unprofitable. Leave that, let's say, at $100, duplicate the campaign, put it at 300 or 500, whatever you're comfortable with budget-wise. Leave the original one on until you start to see some results from the new one. That's one way to do it, just so you're to be very safe that your original campaign is going to continue performing. Like I said, that's very dependent on the size of the audience and the budgets that you're having. If you have really high budgets with like 1 million people, then you're going to probably want to pause the original campaign because then you're going to be competing. But if you are getting that good cost per acquisition, if you go to that higher budget in the new campaign and all things roughly stay the same, the cost per acquisition, you're going to get the number of conversions you need twice as fast or 3 times as fast if you've doubled or tripled your budget, as an example. Any changes, Monique asked, any changes to the solution around lower than 2% click-through rate if you're using dynamic ads? Really good question. So dynamic ads are going to be pulling the images. Your creative is your product images. So the only thing I would say there is there's 2 components. One is the ad copy. So this could be offering any sort of, so what's really common with e-com when it comes to dynamic ads is you might say people who viewed or added this product to their cart within 3 days, let's just show them the product again. And then you have another audience of people who viewed or added the product to their cart in the last 7 days, excluding the last 3 or the 3 before that. Let's give them free shipping. And then anyone that's, because it's like, okay, they've seen the ads, but they're not converting. Let's kind of throw something out there. And then for people that have, let's say, viewed or added the product to their cart within 14 days and haven't bought, maybe you do like, here's a 10% discount. That's the way I do it. I usually break it down by 3, 7, 14, and potentially 30 days. But it really depends on the cost of your product. If you have a low cost product, you don't want to spend too much money. So if the more audiences you have retargeting, the more you're spending overall for that person. Krista asked, do you have any recommendations for Facebook to Instagram mix when running ads? Yes. So I usually, when I start, this changes often, by the way. So Facebook changes their algorithm and things work and don't work one week and work and don't work the next week. But what I do right now, as of this moment, I will leave when I'm testing a new audience or new creative, I leave the placement as automatic. And then after a few days, I then go back in and I look at, on the ads manager, you can go into breakdowns and you can view by placement of your conversions. So you'll be able to see how many conversions are coming from Facebook mobile, Facebook desktop, Instagram shopping, Instagram Explore, Audience Network, all these other things. And then you want to optimize about what's working. So then you can edit the ads or create new ads and optimize by, let's say Instagram's working, Instagram stories is working better than Instagram feed. Then you'll use Instagram stories for this campaign and you can break them down. You can even break them down into duplicate the audience like 3 times as an example and have one specifically optimizing for Facebook mobile, another for Instagram stories, and another for Instagram feed. Yes. So now I'm going to continue this slide. Anesh asked a couple questions about trust icons. So if we go back for a second to the previous problem, so there's a lot of added carts, but very few sales. So first thing, get some dynamic product ads going if you don't have them already. That's like number one. Really common thing that increases conversion by it depends on the business and so on. And I know people want to stay on brand, but green call to actions. One thing that I always struggle with clients is everyone wants to be, this is my brand, this is how I want it to look. I get it. I totally understand. The reality is you want sales. If you have to put an ad out that has nothing to do with the look and feel of your brand, but it converts 10 times better than your other brand, you better figure that out. So green call to actions, add support options. So things like put an email, put a phone number, put your address, put live chat. I put that down there as a different one. Those are all really important. With Conversify, we have a live chat, and Adam is on that live chat like all day. And the amount of people that turn into customers because of the live chat is insane. So that is super, super important. Even for ecom. Testimonials are always great. Just don't clutter the page too much on that checkout page, but you do want to have some things. So testimonials could be like a tweet that someone sent you that says, hey, I love this product or whatever. Like screenshot that and put it in. FAQ sections are super good. Really interesting. You can put unboxing videos if you have a product, or customer testimonials if you don't have a physical product. Maybe you're offering a service as an example. Put those on your checkout page, or even in your ads. Those are really good for ads, by the way, for retargeting. Make e-commerce super important to make sure you have clear shipping times. Super, super important. So Nesh, you asked about trust icons. So trust icons would be, you can actually just go into the Shopify app store if you use Shopify, and I'm sure like WooCommerce and these things have the same thing, but literally search trust icons and there's certain things that'll show up. So there's going to be all the credit cards that you accept. There's going to be, let me see. Let me find a Shopify store quickly. Shopify. What they're called. There's a few other ones. So there's like 30-day money back guarantee, 100% satisfaction guarantee, easy returns, secure ordering, like those types of things. If you literally go into your app store of whatever e-com tool you're using, or just Google Shopify trust icons, you'll see them. Those are always good. And then you also ask what an unboxing video means. So if you actually are selling a physical product, when you can send that to an influencer or to a customer and ask them in exchange for something to record themselves opening the product. There's actually one of the highest earners on YouTube I think he's like a 6-year-old child with his father, that all they do is open kids' toys. And they make tens of millions of dollars doing that. People love to see the unboxing experience. So packaging in that scenario is pretty important. And those are like the main things when it comes to if you have like the issue of lots of add to carts or lots of opt-ins but no leads. Those are the most important things. So I know this is a lot of information. So I know this is going to be recorded. By all means, go through it, pause on sections that you need. If you have any specific questions to this, my email is gordon@clientmagnet.co. You can reach out to me directly. Dave Portnoy unboxing is a great example, Johnny. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me directly. Sarah is very well versed in this as well. So any questions can go to the Grow Class community. A lot of the stuff is like there's a lot of back and forth conversations within Grow Class. So if you haven't take a look at Grow Class, it's like this is what you get. You get a community of experts, and I think that the thing that she's done amazingly well that is so hard to do is build a community of people. So If you want more kind of stuff like this, follow everything that they're doing. If you have specific questions for me, Gordon@clientmagnet.co, and I'm happy to look through your ads or give you any advice that you need. But that's about it. Like, if you have questions, let's just answer any final questions now. I know we're up to like 43 minutes, so I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. But either way, I really appreciate your time. You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Gord. That was so great. I think you hit on all of the key problems that people have with their ads, and you gave a whole bunch of different options that people can use to experiment to kind of unstick themselves. So thank you so much for taking the time today. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is just test everything. Like, it's a shitty answer to hear sometimes because it adds a lot of work, but like, testing is super, super, super important.
Yeah, 100%.
Christine asked, any sites to follow to stay in the kind of know about Facebook algo changes. I don't have any specific sites, but I have like communities on Facebook that I'm in. Like, Facebook ad buyers is really, really big. And then honestly, the more you're in the account, the more you're going to notice things that stop working or start working. But Facebook ad buyers is a really good community on Facebook that you can go into and learn a lot about any updating. There's people that spend, insane amounts of money in there. For e-commerce, low price products, $20 to $45, like books. Any advice on e-com rate to aim for? Monique, super dependent on like your margins and everything. Like, at the end of the day, you need to make money. So there's a few, it really depends on the business and the scenario. So in a sense, maybe you can break even and then do a lot. You have a really good after the sale funnel that upsells people on products, and you have a really good lifetime value of a customer. That stuff's super important to take into account. If you do not have that and you don't have a great lifetime value and it's kind of a one-off purchase, you have to get that cost per purchase like below your margins so you have a profit. And at the end of the day, it's not going to work for everyone. Like, you have to understand, you have to test different platforms and figure out what works best, what's the lowest cost per acquisition, what's the lowest cost per lead, or whatever it is. Like, we find, sometimes on Google, there's a way higher intent for a purchase because someone's actively searching for it. And the cost per click might be more expensive, but the cost per purchase could be cheaper than Facebook. So it's really, really important to test different platforms if you're really struggling on one. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You just got to find a different platform that works or increase your costs.
And know your P&L, like the back of your
Super
hand.
important.
Like, know your margins, like before you ever touch an ad platform.
I'll give you actually a good example on that. So with Conversify, a ton of our customers come from Facebook and Google. The cost, so our product's $30 a month. So it's really inexpensive. We're way cheaper than most people on the market. The cost per sign up, like to get someone to not even buy, just to get them into into our tool, outweighs it depends. Like, it goes from anywhere from like $10 to $30, depending on the time of day and year and whatever. It really depends on what's happening and what time of year it is. But let's say even on the high end, $30. We know our lifetime value though. So that's totally affordable for us to acquire someone at that price range when we know that they might stay 6 months, as an example. So that's really important to know, is that any lifetime value takes a lot of data to figure out. But even us, like, that's a new company, and if we're using Stripe for checkouts, and Stripe will actually update your LTV every month based off your customers. And it's a little skewed sometimes, but you'll start to see that, you have a churn rate of like whatever 2%, and the average person spending X. Now you roughly know that, hey, if they're spending X and they're only churning at 2%, you can do the math and say, I'm able to acquire for this cost, no problem, and still make money. Yeah.
In Grow Class, we have what we call templates for overworked marketers. which is just like P&L templates and cost of acquisition templates that like help you kind of like put in your numbers and figure out what this should actually look like when you're running ads.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Super helpful. Trust me, I've had the issues where like when I first started learning ads, I created my own e-commerce drop shipping stores, and the first store, like those first 2 stores, I had no idea like what my margins were or anything, especially when you're drop shipping other people's products. Like you have no clue until you do it, which is, it's an expensive thing to learn. So if you can get a head start with things like these worksheets that Sarah offers, it's super helpful.
Amazing. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer because I know how you're running 2 companies, 2 successful companies. So I'm going to let you head out. But thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Gord. It's invaluable. And anyone who's still here, Grow Class, where you get to hang out with Gord and I more, opens. We're opening officially on March 1st. There might be the ability to pre-enroll and get some extra stuff a little bit earlier in February. So make sure that you are on the list at growclass.co, because we'll let our wait list know first when the pre-enrollment opens. And it was so good to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone go get a coffee and some lunch and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Thank you so much for coming.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It was great to meet everyone.
Thank you so much, Gord. Have a great, wonderful rest of your day. I'm doing my like awkward jazz hands, but like whatever. It's Zoom. It's the pandemic. I'm awkward. It's fine. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.